Live at the Vive. Welcome to a new week. It is Monday and we are going to start this week off right. I'm Nigel Barker and we are going live with none other than a level 2, let me get it right, level 2 authorized Ashtanga yoga teacher. I'm talking about Day Christensen, aka at Day One Yoga. And she knows a thing or two, because if you look at her bio, she talks about the fact that she's going rogue, people. She has gone rogue. She had a back injury. She had to rediscover what yoga meant to her, and she created Day One Yoga. And that is what we're going to be talking about with her. And she is here. I'm ready to accept right on time and get those tips and those bits of advice. Because if you're like me, you may have tried yoga, but it may be difficult for you and you want to find the right way to do it. Hey, how are you today?
Hey, Nigel, how are you?
Very well indeed. Where are you in the world?
Right now I'm doing a bit of traveling and I'm in Oklahoma.
Oh, fantastic. And that is, where is home for you?
South Florida.
South Florida. Okay. Well, certainly a different pace in Oklahoma. It sounds very cool. I've not been there. How are you finding it? What is Oklahoma like?
It's nice to be in the autumn weather. That's what it is right now. The leaves are changing. It's amazing.
Beautiful. I can imagine. I live up in the Catskill Mountains in New York State, and it's likewise, although it's becoming increasingly wintry. Well, look, I want to dive into this. I know a thing or two about yoga. Not that I'm a big yogi, because I'm not, and everyone on Vive knows, because I talk about it quite a bit. My wife is a yogi and has been for years, 30 plus years, maybe longer. And, I have experienced through her how who's someone who's been very dedicated for years, also injured themselves multiple times, and oftentimes early on, and I remember back in the day, didn't know why the injuries were there, or couldn't, went for months, if not years, trying to figure it out. And actually only did the injuries go away when she stopped the yoga, right? Or tried something different, right? So
Right.
I know your personal story. You are this level 2 authorized Ashtanga yoga teacher, but if I'm not wrong, you had a back injury and you sort of discovered that perhaps there was something about the repetition of it and the hierarchy of moves. Talk to us about your own experience and how you basically created Day One Yoga.
Yeah, like honestly, I could probably talk for hours about this, but I'm going to try and make this kind of short and sweet, which is that whenever you're doing a practice where you're doing, like, let's say 6 days a week, for me, it was like 6 days a week, like 90 minutes to 2 hours. And pretty much the practice was nearly the same movements every day. So of course you get quote unquote really skillful, really good in those movements. But what happens is you have a tendency to sort of exacerbate whatever it is, whatever direction you like to go. So it's sort of like, I can liken it to being like a right-handed versus left-handed. Everybody has their preferences, and that goes for specific movements as well. For instance, a lot of times people talk about being intolerant to forward bending or intolerant to back bending. Well, if you're intolerant to back bending, it must mean you have a preference for forward bending. So anyway, long story short is that all the movements that I was doing was putting me into deeper and deeper and deeper back bending. And what I came to realize was that if I back bend, if I have a little extension in my spine, which now I try and sit with my back round a little bit when I talk to people and just sit around, but we've all been taught to sit with our back straight. And that's quote unquote good posture. And actually it's not good or bad. It's just posture. And we all have a preference towards one thing or another. And the answer is to do the opposite of what you would be doing for the majority of your day. So let's say that, you have 24 hours in a day, and let's say that, the majority of that is sort of unconscious movement. When you get onto your yoga mat, that's supposed to be conscious movement. So whenever you can be conscious of how you're moving or how you're holding your posture, what you should be doing is the opposite of your tendency. So for me, I was doing a ton of back bending in life and in my yoga practice, and it wasn't helping. It was making things worse. So I learned how to do a lot more spinal flexion, to work on true balance rather than the sort of yoga model. The yoga model of balance is you do pose, counter pose. You do a forward bend, you do a back bend. But if my life is back bends, I could just eliminate the back bends and do more forward bends, and that would be true balance.
Interesting. It's so you just said something that I don't think I've actually ever heard, which is funny enough, which is you mentioned how posture is, there's no such thing as good posture or bad posture. That I think is, I've never heard, certainly not from a yogi. And I know with my wife, who's also a dancer and practiced ballet for years, has this completely, as you can imagine, a ballet dancer, bolt upright posture, you know, like the neck is, it's almost like it's being held up by a string, right? And
Right.
I have been told, I'm 6'4", and my son, who's just turned 16, is 6'3", and we're both, and I'm better these days. At least now you tell me that it's perhaps there isn't bad or good, but I remember my mother, as my wife tells my son, stand up straight, sit, because you're hunched a lot of the time, because perhaps, and we're always told it's because people are shorter than us. But is that bad posture, or is that something which could potentially be natural, or should I be telling him put your shoulders back? Or
So the answer is that especially for tall people in dance, everybody has their own little set of issues. And like I said, there's no one good better than the other. The idea is that you have full range of movement over all your joints. You know, for instance, your elbow goes into flexion, it goes into extension, right? So the idea is that you have full range of motion. You can lower your head, you can lift your head, you can turn, whatever it is. But you, Nigel, and your son might have a preference to just sort of bring the head forward. And that is what you've chosen to do, and it's a pattern that's been repeated, and maybe it's because you're tall, or maybe it's because whatever, you read a lot or you work at a computer, who knows, a million reasons. But this is a pattern that's started to take over, and what starts to happen is that your muscles just sort of just go in that direction. It's like a groove, a pattern in a record, where you can just keep following that same pattern, and it becomes an unconscious movement. So what we're really looking for when we're doing conscious movement is whatever the hell the opposite is in your life. And that would be sort of, if you have to put a label on it, good or bad, that's good. As much as you can be conscious of the movements that you're doing and do the opposite of whatever your tendency is, that's good.
it's a funny. I smile because I saw Akil from Akil Hydro, who's one of the top hydro rowers. He likes to think he's the top hydro rower, but he's not. There's a few others. But anyway, he's on here on this conversation with us right now. And he said, I'm going to have to tell you to stop sitting up properly. I guess, it's funny because listening to everything you say, there's no doubt, it doesn't matter what exercise you do, right? Whether you're rowing, which is something I like to do a lot of, whether you're, CrossFit, whether you are bar and ballet, whether you're yoga, there's a lot of repetition in a lot of sport and in a lot of fitness, right? So it doesn't, because oftentimes people, you hear about perhaps an injury with yoga and people are like, oh, well, that's really tough. But it's actually in every sport, in every exercise, in every fitness that this can happen, right? So a lot of your thought process, your methodology really can be applied to a lot of different fitness. Do you see this? I mean, and do you have athletes from other I guess walks of life doing yoga with you who perhaps are a rower or just do something different?
Yeah, like truthfully, the thing is that anybody can practice with me, just depending on kind of the avenue that they want to take. And yeah, I have tons of students throughout the years that have nothing or don't care about yoga per se. Obviously, I have the bias because I've been doing yoga for 18 years now, and so I have definitely a language that I can speak with people who are practicing yoga, and I know their little tendencies, and I know how certain practices work and what they kind of push you towards doing, deep yoga asanas, deep back bends, whatever it is. And so I can certainly help with those things. But if you understand patterns, if you understand people's, body mechanics and their little tendencies, you can fix any muscle imbalance, which is really what it is. Any pain and injury, you can pretty much track it down to some sort of muscle imbalance. I can give you an example. So let's say that you're experiencing like medial knee pain. Okay, and maybe
Hmm.
you wind up with a meniscus tear or something like that. And it could be because you're a CrossFitter and you're doing a lot of squat, barbell squats or whatever it is. Who cares? Doesn't matter because it can happen with anybody. So the tendency is that for people with that medial knee pain, that their knees are kind of caving in a little bit on a squatting motion. So if your knees are caving in, what's that from? That's from, having really tight adductors that are pulling the knees in and weaker abductors. So you can attribute this to a muscle imbalance that you can easily correct just by strengthening your abductors and stretching your adductors or whatever it is. So yeah, you can find patterns with any particular athletic endeavor. Dancers, people think that yoga and dancers and gymnasts all have, they're doing the best stuff, right? Where people have, the dancers have the bodies that everybody wants, and the yogis, they have all that spiritual enlightenment, and the gymnasts can do the most incredible skills, but it all comes with their own baggage of pain and injury and problems and all those things. So you just have to learn what are the movements that they're doing the most, and then actually do, whenever you can be conscious of it. I'm not saying give up your skill or give up your sport or give up, just when you're doing conscious movement, which to me is, that's the yoga, is do the opposite of whatever you're training.
Yeah.
Create balance in that way.
No, no, 100%. It's funny. My wife has always been trying to get me to do yoga, and I try and do parts of it. She's someone who, to your point, when you become someone who's dedicated, you're probably similar. It's not just yoga for 2 hours or on a mat. It's sort of yoga all the time. She's sort of doing yoga stretches as she's cooking or preparing, or when she's doing ironing, I'll see her leg will be up in the air, and but it's also like this dancer stretch that's happening at any one given moment, and I'm like, what is happening here? But I found for her that, again, to your point, when I take her out of yoga, or she decides to do something else, that's how she's actually healed herself, is rowing. Because I'm a rower, she got on the rowing machine, and first of all she hated it, but actually it was applying and building strength in a different way that I think helps strengthen the muscles too. Because being a dancer, and I think a lot of people find this, you can become hyper flexible. And so therefore yoga becomes easy in a way because you're good at it,
Right.
and that doesn't necessarily make it better for you. In fact, do you find that as well with certain people who are hyper flexible, that it's not really the same, right?
You know what? Any flexibility. So, and usually people see that, especially in yoga bodies, people see the flexibility in, again, the deep back bending. And a lot of times people who've been practicing yoga for a really long time, they have a really deep forward bending as well. So then it looks like, bam, here's this person who is incredibly flexible. But I find that even the quote unquote most flexible people have specific movements, specific directions where they have a really hard time with. For instance, people that I'm like describing, deep back bends, deep forward bends, deep yoga practitioners, have a very hard time externally rotating their hips. They have a harder time putting their leg behind their head, which is in a lot of yoga. I'm not saying it's a great idea, but it's just symptomatic that there's something that if you're very flexible in one direction, oh, I'm really great at bending my arm, well, then I'm going to have a harder time straightening it. If you're really good with internal rotation, you're going to have a harder time with external rotation. Everything in your body is like a system of gears and pulleys. So you're always going to be pulled toward one side versus the other. And it's common as being, like I said, right-handed versus left-handed. You're always going to have a preference. So the key is to just balance out whatever your preferences are.
I love the fact that you're such a wealth of knowledge on the anatomy and physiology, which is so important, because, to be honest with you, there are not all trainers and instructors who are out there have this level of knowledge, which I think is fabulous. And one of the things, whenever I listen to any of your classes or look at any of your content, I love that feedback. It's so valuable, and it's rarely out there. I'd love to know, how did you discover yoga in the first place? What was it about yoga that you were like, oh, this is for me, this is the exercise, or something?
I think that, like, a lot of people come to yoga for maybe some of the same reason, not a lot, maybe not, I don't know. But, there's this idea, this kind of elusive nature of being a yogi and being able to do crazy things with your body. and still finding that peace. And that's the allure, is that we're supposed to be these, wonderful spiritual enlightened beings. And truthfully, I wanted that. I wanted to be peaceful and happy and free and all those things that come along with yoga. And I just was finishing up college, and I was in this world of academia. But prior to that, in high school, I was a total jock, very athletic. And in college, I let it all go to pursue an art degree. And I felt so disconnected from my body, so unhealthy. And I was like, I want to get healthy again. And I felt too old for team sports. It wasn't possible in my life anymore. And I just thought yoga must be a really great thing, because everybody I knew who was doing yoga seemed to have this, live, strong body that I wanted. But of course, when you start digging in a little bit deeper, took me a really long time, several years, you start realizing, wait a minute, they all got problems too. They have pains and injuries and issues and other things. And finally, when I was feeling the incredible back pain, that's when I really started to look at the whole system and change the way I was practicing and thinking.
Well, and obviously this back pain is something which I think a lot of people just live with. I mean, I'm someone I think who's had back pain since I was about 15, 16 years old. I used to play rugby, and I think I crushed a disc when I was in a scrum at one point, and I've sort of dealt with back pain one way or another my whole life. In fact, even standing here talking to you now, I can feel a sort of a pain in my right leg going down, but it's always kind of there, sort of. And but there are ways to kind of get sort of, I don't know, fix yourself, right, to some extent. I mean, sometimes an injury is an injury, and perhaps without surgery, I don't know, but I've decided not to go that route. But do you recommend that sort of yoga for everybody to some extent?
No, I don't recommend yoga for everybody. I just recommend learning your patterns, learn what they are, learn what you love to do, incorporate, some corrective conscious movement, whether it's, anywhere from, I used to say 6 minutes a day of specific stretches are really good, plus 6 minutes of strengthening. So it's like a total of 12 minutes, maybe 5 days a week, something like that. And then when you're actually doing your workouts, whether it's yoga or CrossFit or HIIT or rowing or whatever it is, do them, enjoy them. Don't make it so incredibly repetitive that you're always winding up with the same pain and injury. So either space it out or put some variety in the workouts. And that's what I try to do with the classes that I'm teaching now. I'm doing like 30-minute classes, and there's variety every day.
30 minutes, and that's pretty easy to do. And you just mentioned 6 minutes and 6 minutes, 12 minutes, people. That's super easy to do. I mean, look, literally the whole point of Vive, the platform we built, was to bring together as many people from health, wellness, and fitness who do different things, engaging, entertaining, disruptive. And you just said yourself, no, I don't necessarily recommend yoga for everybody, and try different things, which I think is wonderful, because there's something for everyone out there, right? There is the most important thing I've often thought is just about moving, staying, really keeping your body in movement. And just a couple of days ago, I posted a video of my mother, who is 79 in her 80th year of life. Every day, 6 days a week for an hour, she works out. And religiously, she came from Scotland, she came to my house, and on the first day at my home, and I would be relaxing if I was her, there she is, 79 years old, in her gym outfit, going, where's the workout? I want to do a workout. And then she sees my rowing machine. I want to have a go at that. I'm just saying to people that if you want to hit 79 or 80 years old and be full of life, look like you're 60, and it does take a form of dedication, but it also takes being entertained, right? You have to be into it. You have to enjoy the process. It can't be a chore. What do you do to create that? I guess is what I'm getting at the end of the day. When what is your personal methodology and to make it fun, or to make it entertaining, or to keep at it?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and it's so important, because I was doing these yoga practices that were sometimes pushing 2 hours or more, and doing it the same thing, and I was hating it. I was dreading it, but I was doing it because it was just sort of like I was so determined to, achieve these goals and whatever. So here's what I did. I took something I'm really interested in, which is upper body strength, doing handstands, doing what in yoga we call vinyasas, smooth transitions, jumping back, jumping through, things like that. I took that and I took out everything else I hated and I condensed it into a really short practice that it's sort of like what I say is like yoga and CrossFit had a baby. So it's sort of like like short, HIIT style conditioning fitness aspect workouts with this added element of the skills that I'm interested in, which are handstands, jumps, jump throughs, things like that. And so I put them together, and that's basically what I do every single day. So I train from 5 to 6 days a week, 30 minutes, in that kind of format. I do a little bit of maintenance work. Like I said, that's usually 12 minutes, 3 times a week. And what I do is I create variety. So I follow a very simple, like, bro format of when you go to the gym, you do push day, pull day, and leg day. I do that. I do a push day, a pull day, and a leg day, and then I repeat it, push, pull, legs. So I change my focus every single workout. I never do more than 30 minutes. And so even on the days when I feel
Wow.
tired or whatever, I can always squeeze it in, or I can always find the energy to just start doing my warm up, which is usually about 3 minutes long. And then I'm in the middle of it before you know it. And I never feel like, oh my God, I have this 2-hour practice that I can't, it's like an uphill battle sometimes. Well, it certainly was for me. Anybody who does a lot of yoga probably starts feeling that way after a while.
But it's funny because it certainly can get addictive. I like to squeeze in 30 minutes, 45 minutes every day if I can. But when I get the opportunity to go to the gym for, say, an hour and a half or even 2 hours, it's like I'm on vacation. I walk
Yeah.
in and I'm like, wow, I get to really hang out in here. Like I can try that machine that they've got that's new, or something that's fun, or something that's different, or entertaining. Now, I want to change track a little bit because
Okay.
I want to talk also about your nutritional aspect of what you do and how you approach it. Because obviously everyone has a slightly different angle when it comes to food, and it comes to their body and fueling their body. You're in incredible condition. Your handstands are off the hook, but and I know for myself, I don't eat meat. I'm a pescatarian, and I have a certain type of diet. Do you believe in any certain kinds of diet? How important is the food that you put into your body?
Oh, it's for me, it's like a big thing. I can't get carried away with any sort of temptations when it comes to food. I'm pretty much raw fruitarian. So I'm
Wow.
vegan, I'm plant-based. I eat fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, very little grains, gluten-free. I'm very, very careful. But I know through tons of years and trial and error that that's just when I look and feel my best. And if I cheat here and there for whatever reason, I just don't feel as good. It like automatically starts showing up. So I try and be pretty specific, but everybody has like a different thing, different metabolism, different bodies, different things. So some people need more food. Most people should probably be eating less. So anyway, but a raw diet really works for me really well.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And yeah, and I've tried raw diets too, and there's no doubt you're going to feel great on a raw diet. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone I've ever met, I've heard of people literally getting over serious illnesses through just the raw diet alone when medicine has failed them. So there's a lot to be said for that, and I take my hat off to you for being able to really maintain it. It's often, for me, it's been the difficulty of, I travel a lot for work, and I'm on sets with different people and what have you. As one, you may know, people out there, I'm a fashion photographer normally by trade, and it's often hard to implement such a strict regimen. But for people like myself who are out and about doing things and perhaps don't find themselves in an environment where they can control their diet as much, is there something that you recommend? Do you help people with their diet as well?
I do a fruit cleanse. So yeah,
Mm.
I do this for anybody who is one of my students who seems interested and seems like they're struggling with, just their relationship to their body. It could be weight, it could be that they're just unhappy or they feel low energy or whatever it is. So yeah, I do a little bit of that. And, I'm not very strict when it comes to other people. I give suggestions, and, we try it, and it can go from anywhere from 7 days to 30 days. But I have certain staples like that. I always eat seaweed. So even like when you're traveling, I always have like nori sheets or sea moss powder or something. Seaweed is really good for like energy. and getting your greens in. And I always have like dates and bananas, really sweet, sugary things, because that is, people want to eat a donut or a cupcake or whatever. While I have something super sweet, I eat a lot of like dark chocolate, and like one small piece of dark chocolate usually kind of curbs craving. So yeah, I have my little tricks, and everybody can kind of find something like that for themselves that works. That's kind of an easy thing that you can travel with.
Do you drink cocktails?
No, I don't, but I drink coffee. That's
Not quite the same, Dave. Not quite the same. But guess what? I do have a cocktail, but I don't drink coffee.
Oh,
Okay, so
really?
I do the opposite. I took myself off all caffeine a while ago, because for me, caffeine is, I'm already bouncing off the walls most of the time. So,
Yeah.
and if I have coffee, I can't sleep. Even if I have it in the morning, it'll affect me for days on end. And by the way, people, when I stopped drinking coffee years ago, it took about a month and a half for the coffee to work its way out of my body. That's how long it took, to be honest, right? And
Right.
the headaches and all the rest of it. But it was a life changer for me. But anyway, that's interesting. I ask about the cocktail thing because I do a podcast called The Shaken and Stirred Show, which is all about making cocktails. And I'm curious. There's a lot of people who work out and who actually do enjoy a bit of a cocktail once in a while. But talking about sleeping and obviously caffeine, sleep is very important, right? And recovery is clearly key to someone who works out as many times as 6 times a week or whatever, even if you only work out a few times a week. What is your sleep regimen?
I mean, I'm really good on 8 to 9 hours. I'm a good sleeper, and I like to
Wow.
sleep, and I take naps. So this is why I need the coffee, is that I can like sleep like that. Not everybody's like that. Some people are just like wired to just be like, on all the time. So, okay, I understand you would not want to have caffeine, but like, I don't know. It's just, I guess, one of those weird individual little things. But yeah, I do really well on a lot of sleep. And my answer for recovery and being able to maintain 5, 6 day a week workouts is, again, variety. So if I'm doing a push day on Monday, I'm not going to push again until Thursday. Again, it's just a bro formula. It's just go to the, just simple formula so that I can give those muscles at least 2 days to fully recover before I go and like torture them again. And that's a really good thing as well, is like you're not doing the exact same workout all the time. Even if you have a sport, even if you're a rower, even if I'm a swimmer, even if you're doing a sport where you like to do it frequently, change the workout. One day is sprints, one day is endurance, one day is, I don't know, make something up, but change it a little bit so you're not going to burn out.
Do you challenge yourself as well? I know that for me personally, I give myself certain goals that I'm trying to hit, or I'm on a leaderboard where I'm racing people, or I'm competitive with a group of my friends on a chat, and we'll set up this month, let's try and do this. And we see who gets there first. Does that sort of thing happen too? And I'm only asking because within the yoga community, sometimes one might think, well, what are you going to do? Who can do a deeper back bend? I don't know.
Right there. Yeah, that's a huge part of human nature. That's what helps inspire and motivate us. I think it's super good to have that. And people really, the people in the yoga community have a tendency to really get scared about, no, it's good, healthy competition, have groups, have friends, challenge each other. A lot of my students who work with me I'm on an online platform, but they're all friends, and they talk and they share stories and, certain things. And yeah, I think it's good to push.
Everybody wants to be at the front of the class or the back of the class, right? There's no in between. You
Right,
either want to be
right.
seen or you want to be hiding in the back. I get
Right.
it. I hear it. Listen, one final question. Vive, the name itself, comes from the French verb vivre, to live. And I would love to know from you what life means for you. What is the meaning of life for you? Big question
Um,
to end, but I think you're someone who's very deep. I know you spent time in Mysore in India. In fact, you've got people on from India right now. I'm very curious. You've
yep.
seen a lot of life. You've traveled a lot. What does it mean for you?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is to find your purpose and use it to make the world a better place somehow, even if it's one person at a time, whatever it is, find purpose. People, So you have to have your, you know, your social relationships. These are the things that make you healthy relationships, love, getting out in nature, enjoying yourself. So whatever you can do to keep your body fit and healthy in order to enjoy those things in life, that's what you should do. But it should never take away from your life. It should never take away from your living. If you get to a point where your fitness, you're spending 6 hours in the gym, you're really taking away from the life. You're too tired to do anything else. So it's always about finding that balance of just doing the right amount so that you can go out and enjoy things. You know, if you have kids, be with your kids. If you have grandparents, be with your grandparents, or whatever it is. So those are the most important things to me.
I love it. I mean, hey, a yogi telling us that it's all about balance. No shocker there.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've got to say, you are 100% right. It is about balance, and it's something that we all forget. And certainly these strange times that we live in, we need some balance in our life, and we need to be able to stop too and enjoy what we have right in front of us. Day Christensen, thank you so much. Day One Yoga.
Thank you.
Congratulations on everything you've created. I look forward to collaborating with you at Vive, hopefully in the upcoming months and years. Good luck with everything, and happy holiday season. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nigel. Good to talk.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.